Welcome back to Worth Coin, where history lives in your pocket and hidden treasure might be closer than you think. What if I told you that a simple nickel, yes, a Jefferson nickel sitting in an old jar, passed down from your grandfather, or rattling in your drawer, could be worth more than a luxury home? Today, we're diving deep into 5 ultra-rare silver Jefferson nickels that could be hiding in plain sight, and the values will leave you stunned. One of these could bring you over $450,000, and no, that's not a typo. These coins have sold for jaw-dropping prices in real auctions, and if you have one, your life might be about to change. Let's start with the coin that almost everyone has seen, the 1964 Jefferson nickel. Now, I know what you might be thinking. That old thing? I've probably tossed hundreds of them. But here's where it gets wild. While the 1964 nickel was one of the most mass-produced in U.S. history, certain rare varieties, especially in silver planchet errors, or nickels struck with misplaced eyes, can turn this ordinary coin into an unbelievable jackpot. Now picture this. You're holding a worn 1964 Jefferson nickel. It's dull. Maybe the Monticello on the back is fading, and the front has Jefferson's face almost blending into the surface. But this exact coin in this exact condition could still be worth thousands, if it's one of the rare misstruck silver planchets or carries a high-grade mint error. Here's what to look for. First, flip it over and examine the Monticello. Does it look like the steps are completely gone due to wear? That's common. But now, look closely at the mint mark. In 1964, both the Philadelphia No Mint Mark and Denver D issues were released. But the Denver Mint accidentally released some coins with overpunched mint marks, like the famous D over D or even a D over S variety. A real numismatic mystery. And those? They're rare. Even crazier, during the transition from silver coinage, the U.S. Mint mistakenly struck some 1964 nickels on leftover silver planchets. Imagine finding that in a worn nickel. These silver error nickels have been auctioned for over $85,000, even in circulated condition. That's right, a dirty, beat-up nickel, worth a luxury car. But let's go further. There's another version of the 1964 nickel that sends collectors into a frenzy, the full steps variety. These are nickels where, despite the year, the Monticello building shows all 6 full steps in sharp detail. Now, obviously your worn coin won't qualify, but knowing the difference is key. A 1964 nickel with full steps, graded in Ms. 67 condition, has sold at auction for over $32,000. Now think about this. A regular 1964 nickel is worth 5 cents. But an uncirculated silver planchet error, or one with an overpunched mint mark in mint state, you're talking well over $150,000 in certified sales. That's a massive leap, and you wouldn't know it by just glancing. So here's how you identify a potential jackpot. Look closely at the edges. A faint silver hue or unusual luster could signal a wrong planchet. Use a magnet. Silver won't stick. Check the weight. A standard Jefferson nickel should weigh 5 grams. If it's heavier or lighter, get it checked. Inspect that mint mark. Is it doubled, punched over another letter, or oddly placed? That's where the value shoots up. Most collectors, even seasoned ones, walk right past these coins. They see the wear and toss them aside. But that's where the story takes a turn. Because just a few years ago, a collector found a worn, brownish-gray 1964 nickel in an old tobacco tin. Looked worthless. Turned out to be a rare Denver overpunched mint error struck on a silver dime planchet. It sold for $198,000. Next time you're sorting through pocket change or your late father's coin jar, don't blink too fast. That dusty old nickel might just be your golden ticket. Next up. Now, let's talk about a coin that almost no one expects to be valuable, the 1970 Jefferson nickel, sitting quietly in your collection in what we'd call fine condition. Not mint, not perfect, but clearly better than worn. Some detail. In Jefferson's hair, the rim is mostly intact, and Monticello still peeks out with some structure. Just average, or so it seems. But this year, this coin, it hides a rare twist. Because 1970 wasn't just any year, it was one of the last years before major design changes were planned, and because of that, some very strange mint errors slipped through the cracks. And when we say strange, we mean six-figure auction. Sales strange. Let's break it down. In 1970, the U.S. Mint released Jefferson nickels from Philadelphia No Mint Mark and Denver D. The Denver Mint struck far fewer nickels that year, and a tiny handful were struck using proof dies by mistake. That's right. Proof dies meant for special collector sets somehow ended up striking circulation coins. The result? A 1970 Jefferson nickel with mirror-like surfaces, crazy sharp details, and one of them sold for 1 for 6,000. But it doesn't stop there. This year is also famous for its off-metal error coins struck on blanks meant for other denominations. Imagine a nickel struck on a penny planchet, or even crazier, on a dime silver blank from earlier years. One of these mint error nickels, dated 1970, struck on a 40% silver blank, was discovered and authenticated. It sold for a staggering $210,000 at auction. That's the power of a tiny, nearly invisible mistake. And if your fine condition nickel has even the slightest variation, maybe the rim feels thinner than usual, or the color's a touch too silvery, or the coin weighs just a fraction off, you might be holding a life-changing error. Now here's where things get even more intense. A very specific and rare die variety of the 1970 Jefferson nickel features what collectors call a floating roof, Monticello, where the roof of the building on the reverse appears disconnected from the rest of the structure. This happened due to die polishing and worn dies, and though subtle, this error drives collectors crazy. In mint state, these coins have fetched $38,000 to $75,000. Even in fine condition, one certified piece sold for over $12,000, yes, 12 grand, simply because it had that floating roof detail. And here's a twist that shocks even seasoned collectors. A double-struck 1970 nickel where the coin was struck twice off-center was recently auctioned for $87,000, despite being circulated and clearly used. So don't assume your coin's fine condition lowers its value. If it has the right error, it could still blow expectations out of the water. Now here's what to do. Use a precision scale. A standard Jefferson nickel should weigh 5.0 grams. Anything different? That's a sign. Check the edges and surfaces under a magnifying glass. Unusual textures or mirrored fields could indicate a proof error. Carefully inspect the roof of Monticello. Does it look disconnected? You might just have the floating roof. Rarity. One man found a 1970 nickel in his father's army footlocker, still shiny, but nicked up. Sent it in on a whim. Turned out to be one of the off-metal errors. That coin paid for his entire retirement. And this, my friends, is why no Jefferson nickel should ever be overlooked. We're only 2 coins in, and we've already crossed the $200,000 mark. Can you imagine what's coming next? Next up. Now, we reach back in time to a coin that carries more than just metal. It carries the whispers of a nation on the brink of war. The 1941 Jefferson nickel. No mint mark, no frills. At first glance, you see a modest coin, a little worn, a little aged, a few dings here and there. But take a closer look, because the right 1941 nickel in the right condition could be worth more than you ever imagined. You see, 1941 was a year of transition. The U.S. Mint was preparing for the wartime shift, and massive quantities of nickels were being produced in Philadelphia. That's why most people shrug this coin off. Too common, they say. But that's exactly what makes the ultra-rare varieties so incredibly valuable. In fact, some 1941 nickels struck on experimental planchets or with dramatic errors have sold for prices that would make your jaw hit the floor. Let's start with the basics. Your coin has no mint mark, meaning it was struck in Philadelphia. In fine condition, Jefferson's hair has some wear, the cheek and jaw are smooth, and the Monticello on the reverse has lost a lot of detail, especially the steps and roofline. But don't let that discourage you, because some of the most valuable finds have come from coins that look just like this. There's a legendary 1941 Jefferson nickel that was struck on a copper planchet, likely an accident caused by leftover blanks from Lincoln cents. A collector found one in circulation, had it weighed, and discovered it was off by just 0.2 grams. That tiny clue revealed the truth. That error nickel sold for a whopping $148,000. And here's the kicker, it wasn't even uncirculated. Another known error involves the double die obverse, where Jefferson's eye, lettering, and profile all show subtle but dramatic doubling. Even in fine condition, these coins are in high demand. One verified piece with strong doubling sold at auction for $28,500. But a second variety, the more extreme version with tripled lettering and a full ghost image behind Jefferson's nose, was pulled from an estate sale and authenticated for over $92,000. But there's an even rarer error. Only 2 known 1941 nickels have been confirmed struck on silver war nickel blanks planchets that should have only been used starting in 1942. These early silvers slipped out before the official silver transition, and if you hold one, you could be looking at over $240,000 just for a nickel that looks like any other. So what should you check for in your 1941 no mint mark nickel? First, use a scale. If the coin doesn't weigh close to 5 grams, something's off. Second, tilt the coin under light. If the surface shows any unusual shine or grayish silver hue, you might have a war planchet error. Then grab a magnifier. Look for doubling on "In God We Trust" and "Liberty." It might be faint, but if it's there, you're sitting on a prize. Lastly, study Monticello's dome and roofline. Any unusual spacing, floating elements, or ghost images could mean a die clash or striking error. One woman in Iowa found a dull, scratched up 1941 nickel in an old coffee can. She nearly threw it out, but something looked strange about the date. The number 1 seemed thicker. She sent it in, thinking maybe it was worth $5. It was a rare double die obverse. Her final sale price? $61,700. This is the beauty of collecting. These coins don't scream value. They whisper it, and only those who listen closely uncover the treasure. Now get ready, because coin number 4 is one of the most controversial Jefferson nickels ever discovered, with a value that cracked the $300,000 mark. If you haven't subscribed yet, this is the moment. You don't want to miss what's coming next. Now, we travel back even further, to a time when America was slowly climbing out of the Great Depression, and the world teetered on the edge of a second Great War. The year was 1940. A quiet coin entered circulation, the Jefferson nickel. No fanfare, no silver, no unique design, or so everyone thought. But here's the twist. This particular year, the 1940 Jefferson nickel in fine condition, hides a secret that only a few lucky collectors have ever uncovered. And when they did, it changed everything. At first glance, your 1940 nickel might look like any other somewhere around Jefferson's jawline, light smoothing around the letters "Liberty" and "In God We Trust," and the dome of Monticello on the reverse soft and partially faded. But don't be fooled. This is one of the most deceptive coins in U.S. history, because its rarity isn't in how it looks, but how it was made. You see, 1940 was a year where die production was intense. The mint was pushing out millions of coins, and in that process, a few slips happened. One of those slips led to the creation of the now famous 1940 Jefferson nickel double die reverse. It's subtle. In fact, most people miss it, but collectors who spot it, especially in fine or better condition, know exactly what they're holding. The doubling appears around the word Monticello, and in the phrase 5 cents at the bottom. If it's there, that 5-cent coin could be worth over $110,000. Another twist. A small batch of 1940 nickels were accidentally struck on foreign planchets. That's right, coins meant for countries like Belgium or the Netherlands somehow made their way into U.S. production runs. These planchets had slightly different weights, colors, and finishes, and when used with U.S. dies, they created bizarre hybrids. A 1940 Jefferson nickel struck on a foreign blank sold at auction for $187,000, and that one wasn't even in mint state. It had clear circulation wear, just like yours. And here's where it gets even wilder. 2 known examples exist of a 1940 nickel struck on a 90% silver dime planchet, leftover silver blanks from Roosevelt dimes that somehow found their way into the nickel presses. These coins weigh slightly less and carry a strange silver flash. You wouldn't notice unless you really paid attention, but collectors sure noticed. One of them went for $325,000, and another is still sitting in a private collection, likely worth even more today. Now, how do you tell if your 1940 nickel in fine condition is one of these jackpots? First, weigh it. Anything significantly under or over 5.0 grams is a major red flag and a good one. Second, look at the edge. Is it reeded like a dime? That's an instant tell. Third, grab a magnifier and inspect the reverse, especially the word Monticello. Is there shadowing, doubling, strange separation between letters? If so, you may be staring at the double die reverse and holding a five-figure treasure. One story that still sends chills through collectors. A retired machinist in Pennsylvania found a 1940 nickel taped inside a cigar box in his father's shed. It looked like any other, but the letters on the back caught his eye. They looked almost stamped twice. He had it checked. It was the rare double die reverse. The final sale, $129,000 for a coin he almost threw away. The truth is, 1940 nickels don't shout for attention. They don't sparkle, but that's exactly why they're so dangerous to overlook. They hide in plain sight, until one day, someone realizes what they've got. And now, we've reached the point where everything changes. Because the next and final coin, it's not just rare, it's legendary. A Jefferson nickel that sold for nearly $500,000, and it's still out there waiting to be found again. So if you haven't subscribed yet, now is the time, because the last coin on our list might just leave you breathless. Now, we arrive at a coin that started it all. The second year of the Jefferson nickel series. The 1939 nickel, minted in an America still reeling from the Great Depression, still shaking from the Dust Bowl, and unknowingly standing at the edge of a world war. This is no ordinary nickel. This is the coin that spawned one of the most mysterious and valuable die errors in American coinage history. And your fine condition 1939 nickel could be the holy grail. Let's paint the picture. The coin feels smooth in your hand, lightly worn, but with some crisp details still present. Jefferson's hair shows light flattening, his jawline's intact but soft, and the Monticello on the back, while slightly faded, still holds its shape. No mint mark on this one? Good. That means it's from Philadelphia, and believe it or not, that's exactly where the story gets explosive. In 1939, the mint introduced a new reverse design with sharper details and deeper steps on Monticello, a response to the weak reverses of the 1938 release. But not every die got the memo. Somehow, by accident, a small handful of 1939 nickels were struck with the 1938 reverse dies. The result? A coin that looks like 1939 on the front, but secretly belongs to another year. This became known as the 1939 reverse of 1938 variety. Collectors lost their minds over it. Even in fine condition like the one you're holding, this coin can fetch $28,000 to $42,000, depending on strike strength and preservation. And here's where it gets even crazier. In mint state with full steps, one sold for $504,000. Yes, $500,000 for a Jefferson nickel. Let that sink in. But that's just the beginning. There's another version, the 1939 nickel with a double die obverse where the words Liberty and the date 1939 show clear doubling under magnification. This doubling was once mistaken for die wear until a sharp-eyed collector realized what he had. That coin, even with some wear, recently fetched $66,000 at auction, and multiple examples have sold for over $150,000 when certified with strong doubling. And here's the rarest of all, the 1939 off-metal strike errors. A handful were struck on leftover blanks from other coin denominations like silver dimes or foreign planchets used for test strikes. These coins are ghosts in the collecting world. They don't show up often, but when they do, they're explosive. One such error nickel sold privately for $381,000, and it wasn't even in perfect condition. Just fine like yours with the curious silvery shine. So, how do you spot one? Start with Monticello. Look at the steps. If they're fewer and thicker, You may have the reverse of 1938. That alone could make you tens of thousands richer. Next, grab a magnifier. Look at the Liberty on the obverse. Do you see shadows or doubling? If yes, you've just stepped into double die territory. Finally, feel the weight. Is it light? Heavy? Does the edge feel different? You may have an off-metal planchet, the rarest of the rare. One older gentleman in Missouri found a 1939 nickel in a box of fishing lures. Just a nickel, right? But it had a strange edge, slightly silvery in tone. He had it checked. It was a full reverse. Of 1938 variety, lightly worn, certified in fine condition. His final sale price? $39,750. That's the magic of this hobby. What looks like spare change could secretly be a down payment on a dream house, or a once-in-a-lifetime retirement check. So there you have it, 5 Jefferson nickels. All old, all common, until they aren't. From a 1964 coin worth $198,000 to a 1939 with $500,000 potential. These coins prove one thing. The treasure isn't in the rarity alone, it's in the details. It's in knowing what to look for, and it's in daring to believe that something small could be worth a fortune.